This is DHG, and this is my conclusion for How Bad Is It? Call of Duty Ghosts. So how bad is it overall? I would say it's average, and I'll tell you why. Per normal, I'm going to go through the pluses, minuses, and things that are kind of in between. It's just subjective. I'm throwing it out there. It's not really a plus or a minus. And for Call of Duty Ghosts, it's going to be a simple one. I've got 4 pluses, 1 subjective thing, and 5 negatives. Number 1. The shooting is good. Now, this goes without saying. I mean, it is a Call of Duty franchise. The shooting's mostly always been good. I mean, some of the earlier titles, especially some of the old PS2 ports and the ones on the original Xbox, they were still kind of getting the feel for how to set up the controls with the gamepad and all that, but by the time we reached Call of Duty Ghost, everything was established. All they did was fine-tune it, I would say, from Call of Duty 2. Maybe Call of Duty 4. But yeah, the controls, the shooting is rock solid. Plus, number 2. There were some very cool moments in the campaign, like dropping the rods from God in tank battles. Okay, now the tank battle happened previously. What you're seeing right here are the rods from God, which I talk about this during the playthrough. This is a real thing. Or at least it's a real concept. It never got put into action just because of the cost of the program. But the idea was to take telephone-sized tungsten rods and drop them from orbit, which would have these roughly the same amount of kinetic energy as a small nuke, like a tactical nuke. If we're talking kilotons, I can't give you a range. My sources weren't extremely specific on that. But overall, the cost of the program was just way too high, although theoretically, you could do this. And dropping those things from orbit was really, really cool. Okay, here we're getting ready for the tank intro sequence. Later on in the game, right before you start dropping the rods from God, you drop out of the back of a C-130 going straight into battle. That was really cool. The only other game I've seen do that was Mercenaries. Playground of Destruction had an opening like that that was just awesome. And there's not a lot of Call of Duty games anymore that go into tank battles like this. The last one I can think of, or the newest one I can think of that did anything like this was World War II. But these tank battles have always been fun. I always enjoyed that in Call of Duty games. Okay, now we're going to get into a plus or a positive that most people are going to disagree with me on, or at least that's been my experience. I like the extinction mode. Sue me. I thought it was really fun. And there's still some people playing it now, so I was able to get some footage of it. I might throw another additional video in there just to troll everyone that doesn't like extinction mode. I never got the DLCs for it, so I'm just playing the base map, but even with that, I had a lot of fun. I always thought zombies was kind of like, well, how it was at the time, it was, just go until you could. There was no real end or anything. You just go until you die. I didn't like that. I liked how this had a concisive end to the gameplay. You evac, you kill everything on the map, and then you exfiltrate, nukes going off. I thought it was really cool. Now we're getting into the final positive. Positive number 4. Great graphics for an early PS4 title. Games like Battlefield 4 had to render at 900p, just because they threw so much on screen. Even it still had frame rate drops. Developers were still getting used to the new systems. This one's no different, although the game did look great. That comes at a cost, though, and I'll get into that in the negatives. And my own subjective opinion, only one for this game, something that's neither here nor there. It goes in with something Call of Duty's been doing for a very long time, which is propagating propaganda for mainly NATO. Just be quite frank. I mean, one of the guys that was a big developer, I think his name was David Anthony, he's a member of the Atlantic Council. Now, the Atlantic Council is, I won't say it's tied to NATO, it is NATO. And so a lot of the stuff that they've been putting in Call of Duty games, I would say from COD 4 on, have had the very, very not so subtle hand of NATO behind it. Always, you know, the Russians, the Chinese are bad. Everyone's bad except for the West. And the British, oh, they're the best of all. Complete garbage. But the closed systems scarcity story is nonsense. This is something I had a problem with. The whole idea behind this game was that the Middle East runs out of oil, and then Venezuela, being another country that's got a lot of oil, they start their own little empire, and it gets so big that it encroaches on the Anglo-American empire, the United States in particular, that's just minding its own business, you know. And then, you know, a big world war starts. The whole closed systems bullshit that we have limited resources and we can only hold so many people, it's nonsense. There's always new inventions coming up. We used to burn wood, and then we discovered coal. And then we discovered oil, then we discovered nuclear energy. We can always find better ways to do things, and we can always become more efficient in the way that we do those things. If you do something for 10 years, you're going to become more efficient at it. It's going to take you less time to do. Finding new energy sources, new inventions, new discoveries, all this stuff raises the limits to growth. We can have more people at a higher cost of, or at a higher quality of living. Is the whole, it gets mind-boggling how so many people have fallen for the mind trap that we have to be extremely cognizant of. Right now the big thing is climate change and killing the planet. The planet's perfectly fine, but what I'm getting to at is that the Middle East, as far as I know, is not running out of oil. The oil basins over there, and a lot of the oil basins are replenishing themselves. But they make it seem like there's a finite amount. And they've discovered all the known oil sources on Earth, which they haven't. I didn't like that. It's blatantly climate change, climate agenda propaganda, and it wants to scare people into assuming a false future. That this is inevitable, it's going to happen, we're going to run out of resources, and then everything's going to go to hell. It's horseshit. It's not true. Don't buy into it. And now we're getting into the negatives. My first negative is competitive multiplayer is more of the same. I mean, this is a 2013 Call of Duty game. What can you expect? The game's been stale for a very long time. Every now and then they'll do something to try and switch it up, and I'll buy the title. Like, I heard about some new game modes with World War II, so I ended up buying that. And then I thought that maybe Ground War, since a lot of people weren't really playing Call of Duty 2019 anymore. So when Modern Warfare 2 came out, I was kind of excited about Ground War 2.0, but they ended up screwing that up royally. And it's pretty much been the same Call of Duty since Call of Duty 4. Or to be more accurate, since Modern Warfare 2, when they added and expanded all the kill streaks and perks and all that stuff. At this point, it's stale. I mean, this wasn't its worst. I would say that comes a couple of years later when they had to remake one of their older, more popular games and sell it with a game that absolutely no one wanted to play and no one wanted to buy. But if you wanted to play the remade Call of Duty 4, then you had to buy Infinite Warfare with it. I'm going to do How Bad Is It on that once I acquire the game. I don't have it. So yeah, multiplayer, more of the same. I guess that's good if you like the multiplayer, but if you're like me and you got bored with it after a couple years, negative number 2. Bad performance for a series that's known for smoothness and 60 frames per second. Like I said earlier, this was the first title on the PlayStation 4. And this one had all sorts of problems with the frame rate. It's unstable as hell. It will frequently dip down, I would say, maybe into the 30s, and it does it all the time, especially during game modes like Extinction. I didn't notice it all that much in multiplayer. Occasionally, but Extinction, it happens all the time. Yeah, the frame rate is very unstable. Negative number 3. This game, like pretty much every other Call of Duty game since Call of Duty 4, has had the mandatory stealth mission where at some point you're bound to hear the phrase, let them pass, where you just can't be spotted, even though in other levels you're mowing down entire battalions of, armies, thousands of people, hundreds of people. But yet in a stealth mission, you gotta be careful. It's never made any sense. Every time I come across this mission playing through a new Call of Duty campaign, I want to throw up in my mouth. It's so boring, it's so cliche, just stop. Negative number 4. The AI is constantly frustrating. I don't have any real good footage of this, so I'm just showing whatever for the background here, but the AI likes to go to predetermined cover locations, and if you happen to be where they're programmed to be, where their algorithm says go to this spot, they will push you right out of the way and straight into fire, and I ended up dying multiple times because of that. Other than that, the AI seems to do a whole lot of shooting, but no killing. I never really understood, unless it's a scripted moment. In scripted moments, they'll knife somebody or they'll shoot somebody, but other than that, they're really good at pushing you out of cover, and they're really not that great at killing people. The AI is just not that good. I mean, I can kind of understand why they want you to get all the kills, but I would say it's kind of immersion breaking, and for them pushing you out of cover, oh my god, is it irritating. The final negative, negative number 5. The predicate for the story is 100% complete and total nonsense. The Middle East runs out of oil, I've said this already, and then Venezuela becomes the new capital of a new empire where Caracas is like it's pretty much the new London and the new city of London for this globe expanding empire. And it all happened somehow. I mean, I don't think they have that much money in oil down there, but the whole predicate for the story is just completely bonkers. If you play through the game and you don't really pay attention to the story or you don't care about it, it's a lot more fun. But if you're actually trying to think, how could this conceivably happen? You're going to be pounding your head off. So that's it. That's my conclusion for How Bad Is It? Call of Duty Ghosts. And like I said, it's average. I could have given it a lower score. I could not have given it a higher score, but I felt that, it does what it sets out to achieve, which is just be another shooter for that year to rake in money for Activision, and it succeeds in that, but it doesn't really do anything innovative. It's the very definition of more of the same.